Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Monday, April 20th, 2020. I am Dave Biddle. I am joined by Bill Greene. Bank, let's start off with Jantzen Dunn, the 4-star prospect out of Kentucky. He is ranked as the number 1 player in Kentucky by 24/7 Sports. He's the number 3 player in Kentucky according to the composite, meaning ESPN and rivals are not quite as high on him yet as 24/7 Sports. 24/7 Sports has him ranked as the number 146 overall player in the country. The composite has him at 248 overall nationally. He can play corner. He can play safety. Looks like he's going to pick Ohio State sometime later today. What changed over the weekend, Bank?
Yeah, that was a crazy one. Most people had Ohio State as the clear leader. I don't know, probably the past 6 weeks, 2 months. And, you never really heard much about Oklahoma. And then here, things come out Saturday that it's going to be Oklahoma for that kid. And that really seemed weird to me. And then it didn't take long before, there was no more Oklahoma. That was over. And it sure looks like he's headed to Ohio State now. And I don't know specifically what happened. My guess would be that there was some mix-up in communication between Jantzen Dunn and Ohio State to where maybe he wasn't sure he was a take. Maybe Ohio State wasn't sure that he was a take either. I don't know. I just don't think, I think the kid did want to commit. You're seeing a lot of guys making commitments right now, which is not what I thought was going to happen during this pandemic. But a lot of guys are locking in spots all over the country, especially at Ohio State. And I think once the word leaked out that Jantzen Dunn is headed to Oklahoma here, I think Ryan Day and Kerry Combs, probably got together and talked over, what do we want to do? Do we want to let the guy just go to Oklahoma and then try to get him back later? Do we want to pass the kid and let him go? Or, gosh darn it, we got to go get this guy. We can't let him, we got to make a move here. So I think the latter is what happened. I think Day and Combs kind of said, look, let's put full court pressure on Jantzen Dunn. Let's love him up. Let's let him know how much we want him and tell him this is where he belongs. No reason to go all the way out to Oklahoma. You're close to Ohio State, with what Coach Combs can do developing backs, how we put people in the NFL. Do you want to go there and give up 60 a game, or do you want to be closer to home? Come here. We can develop you. We'll put you in the NFL. And I think, when the bottom line was, I think Jantzen Dunn always wanted to be at Ohio State. So I just think it took Ohio State kind of clarifying how much they wanted him, and I think that was it. So I'm like you. I kind of expect Jantzen Dunn commitment either today or this week. I mean, it's going to come soon, and I think he's headed to Ohio State.
Yeah, I do like to say if I was a Bucknuts fan, I would be hitting refresh a lot today. That's my little not so subtle hint. One more thing on Dunn. As I mentioned, he's listed as an athlete by 24/7 Sports. Do you see him as more of a corner or a safety at Ohio State?
Yeah, that's tough to say. I think the athlete designation is really good. I mean, I think he could play offense in a lot of systems. Now, with all the receivers Ohio State has brought in, the current class and last year's class, that's not going to happen. So then you look at his length and his speed. If you watch his film, I mean, he doesn't play a lot of corner, and he doesn't. But I think he could do it at the college level. But I think it would take some coaching from Combs, and I think it would take a lot of work on his part, and he would basically have to learn the position. Now, as a safety, with his speed and his length, he really reminds me of kind of a cross between, Malik Hooker on the high end. If everything works out great, then you might have Malik Hooker. And then he also reminds me of he's a faster Jordan Fuller. Now, Jordan Fuller was so smart, and his football IQ was off the charts. And he could diagnose stuff instantly. So, he might have been a 4-6 guy, but he played 4-4-5. But, I think Jantzen Dunn is a safety. I think kind of falls in that range, hooker on the high end and then kind of a Jordan Fuller guy. And I think, that's where I like him. And, again, you keep taking all these safeties and, I think it's pretty clear that the Jeff Hafley model, the single high safety look, I think that's done. I mean, they're almost looking at, a 3 high safety look now, the way they keep recruiting these guys. And, I like them. They're all good players. And Kerry Combs he was a Tampa 2 guy all his career. It's what he's taught. It's what he's done, with the 2 safeties. And I think when you look at the traditional OSU defense, pre-Jeff Hafley, then I think you're looking at a Jordan Fuller, Malik Hooker type guy in Jantzen Dunn.
I would take that in a heartbeat. All right, let's stick with recruiting for a minute. Exactly, especially the high-end Malik Hooker. Hey, if low-end is Jordan Fuller, sign me up for that too. I was going to move on to some NFL draft stuff with Ohio State. We'll save that for later in the show. We'll stick with recruiting. I want to get your perspective on what's going on with Michigan's recruiting. Let's just take all the snark out of it, or we can be snarky. Your call. A lot of people are having fun on the board with this, but I think this is a serious topic. Michigan is recruiting low-ranked guys from Massachusetts. They have 3 players from Massachusetts. One of them is actually a pretty good player, at least highly ranked. They might all 3 be really good players eventually. Who knows? But looking at the rankings, 2 of them are very low ranked. They also took 4 guys from Massachusetts last year. They have 0 commitments from Ohio this year, Bank. What do you make of Michigan tapping into the pipeline of Massachusetts to find recruits? I would think that's a bad strategy.
Yeah, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me, especially if you look at it objectively. They've got some really good guys committed in this class. So it's not like they can't get top-ranked dudes and they have to just take whatever they can get. That's not the case. I mean, they've got some high-end guys in this class that I really like. I think they're really set up to land another really good O-line class with some highly ranked guys too. So I don't know why you're taking these guys at this time of year. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I mean, Jim Harbaugh's got to do what he's got to do, and I don't understand it. There's no way. Like I say, one of those 3 from Massachusetts, I think, he's got a chance to play. I mean, I don't think it's a guy that as you go around the room with your staff, I don't think he's a guy that you would say, is this the guy we need to beat Ohio State, to compete with Clemson, and to compete with Alabama? I don't think he is. The other 2, I mean, I don't know that I would recommend those 2 guys to Akron or Kent, and I'm trying to be nice. I mean, if you look at their offers, the offers kind of speak for themselves when it's Fordham and Wagner and schools like that. So I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And I guess if you don't like Michigan, you kind of laugh and poke fun of it. If you're a Michigan fan, then you just say, well, we got to trust the coaches. Dave, you and I have been around long enough. We know the message board theme. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense because they have recruited some big-time dudes, and I think they're set up to land some more big-time dudes. So I don't know why you take those 3 guys in April. It makes no sense.
On the flip side, a Big Ten school that's recruiting surprisingly well is Minnesota. I mean, they're now a top 10 class, still very early for the 2021 class. And P.J. Fleck, I want to get your take on him overall. He was a guy that won big, relatively speaking, for the MAC at Western Michigan. That opened my eyes. He's an eccentric guy, so I think a lot of people kind of made fun of him, thought he was going to flop at Minnesota. He's done a good job at Minnesota. As you project it forward, how do you see P.J. Fleck's career going overall?
I mean, he signed an extension last year that I couldn't believe he signed. I thought last year might have been the perfect time for him, to leap on out of there. But, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, and they've gotten better every year, and their recruiting has gotten better too. I mean, he flipped a kid from Kentucky, Columbus kid, Devin Williams, a linebacker that I think can play. He flipped him last week. They're probably going to get a commitment soon from a DB in Ohio. That could come today too that I like, to Marion Crumpley. So they're doing great. I think they're going to be really good this year too. I think they're set for success, and maybe he stays there and tries to dominate, the West, jump out ahead of Iowa, Purdue, Nebraska, battle Wisconsin every year, and, try to play for that Big Ten championship. Maybe he stays there, if he's happy and they're taking care of him, which it appears they are with that latest contract. Maybe he stays. Like I say, his success, I have to say, has kind of surprised me. I kind of thought his act would maybe wear thin, and it's not. So props to him. And I'm not. Sometimes you got to admit when you're wrong, and I never saw him having this kind of success, I have to say. But it's definitely happening. He's doing great, and like I say, big year last year. I think they're going to be really good this year, and that only aids recruiting. People look at you in a different light, when you're winning 10 games than they do when you're winning 5 games. So props to him.
Yeah, he could be their Barry Alvarez if he stays there. I mean, old guys like us remember Wisconsin being a joke of a program. Some of the younger listeners might be like, hasn't Wisconsin always been like a really good program? No, they basically became a good program in 1993, a couple years after Barry Alvarez got there. Maybe P.J. Fleck can be their Barry Alvarez. I just don't want to see P.J. Fleck at Michigan, to be honest with you. Let's head on to the NFL draft. I mean, I think for Ohio State's perspective, it's pretty clear. Chase Young, Jeff Okudah are going to go really early, probably 2-3 overall. Maybe Okudah will slip down a little bit depending on trades and whatnot with quarterbacks. Where it gets really interesting for me, Bank, is J.K. Dobbins. Some people have him going in the late first round. Some people are saying second round. I was thinking initially second round. I'm going to stick with early second. Where do you think J.K. Dobbins is going to go?
Yeah, and I want to preface this by saying that I am not an NFL draft guru at all. Like I say, if you want to talk high school kid going to college, I feel comfortable with that, and I think I've got a pretty good track record there. You want to talk college to NFL, I'm terrible. I don't know. I don't know what they're seeing compared to what I'm seeing, so I'm always wrong. But with Jay, I kind of feel, I would have him as the third back behind Swift and Jonathan Taylor, and I think that probably puts him in that 30 to 45 range, maybe. That would be my guess. And, we'll see. I think he's, dependable. I think he's, really, really raised his stock last year. And I wonder if there might be some question on the injury he had last year, although nothing was broken and I don't know that he required surgery, so maybe that's not the case. But, I think you're going to see J.K. Dobbins in that 30 to 45 range, and I think he's going to have a solid NFL career. I think he can do a lot of things, and I think last year was a great year for him to really come back from that sophomore year that was pretty average.
Last thing, is there another guy you're really keeping your eye on? I'm really curious where this guy's going to go. Damon Arnett, maybe somebody like that. Maybe 2 guys that you're really curious about.
Well, the one for me, and I've got a couple buddies that do coach in the NFL, and they get involved with their team and stuff. And one in particular told me, he said, hey, we're not looking to draft an O-lineman early. If we take an O-lineman in this draft, it's going to be really late. He said, but if we were, he said, our staff has Jonah Jackson as a solid second-round pick. He goes, in all the mocks I'm seeing, people have him listed, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round. He said, if we needed an O-lineman and we were going to take one in the 2nd round or maybe the 3rd round, it would be Jonah Jackson. He graded out really well to us. And this is a team that goes in the playoffs every year. So that was the one that really piqued my interest, is because I never hear his name mentioned at all. Nobody talks about him. He's never listed on any mocks or anything. And here's a really successful NFL team, a guy telling me that their staff graded Jonah Jackson out, is like a top 60, 70, 80 prospect. So he's the one I'm really looking forward to seeing where he lands.
Great insights, as always, from Bill Greene. Thank you, Bank, and thank you to all listeners for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day. Let's try the Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.